Don't Look Up is the new Adam McKay movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. It's about a couple of scientists that discovered that there's a comet that's heading right for Earth, and they're basically trying to blow the whistle on this. So they go, speak to the president, and then that doesn't really go anywhere, so they go to the press, and then that turns into a shit show, and that kind of prompts politicians to act on it. And obviously, it doesn't quite go the way you think it's going to go. And obviously, there's a parallel with real life as well, and environmental issues, etc., etc. Adam McKay, very much kind of tries to make a point in not a very subtle way. That's not really what he seems to be doing, ever. And even in the way this movie's shot, subtlety is not really there. Okay, we're kind of off in a different direction here. This movie, I felt, got a bad rep on Twitter and stuff. I think when this movie came out on Netflix, it got trashed. Pretty much everywhere I saw, it's like, Don't Look Up. Wow, that was dumb. It got trashed a lot. However, Adam McKay's last movie, Vice, got Academy Award nominations, as far as I remember. And that movie sucked. Vice sucked. Vice was a bad movie. Oh my God. Everyone caked in makeup. I'm like, oh man, it's just so bad. It was just awful. Oh man. Vice was the most heavy-handed, wannabe, deep biopic. Oh boy. It almost made it feel just like you were watching a made-for-TV movie, but it had all these big actors in it. It almost felt like a satire of TV movies, bad biopic TV movies, but it was actually taking itself really seriously. Oh man, I can't believe that got anything. This movie's better than Vice. I'll tell you that right now. And I had very low expectations for this movie. Not only because I didn't like Vice. I don't think Adam McKay, apart from some of the really, really good comedies he did at one point, after that, I was kind of not really into, his style. And I really didn't like Vice at all. Plus, I don't like Jennifer Lawrence. I'm sorry. It's just there's some actors just rub you the wrong way. I just don't really like Jennifer Lawrence. So I wasn't really looking forward to this movie at all. It took me by surprise because as much as I hated aspects of this movie, by the end, I was okay with it. By the end, I was like, you know what? This movie's not bad. It's almost... I think this movie's good. That I'm shocked to hear myself say it because I was ready to jump in, see this shitty movie, and be like, you know what, guys? Adam McKay sucks. Peace. But I can't even do that today because I kind of enjoyed this weird movie. If you don't know, this movie is basically a cross between Deep Impact and This Is the End, that weird James Franco, Seth Rogen movie, and Doctor Strangelove. And the Doctor Strangelove comparison only hit me about halfway through the movie because when you're watching the movie, initially you're like, oh, this is going to be very preachy. This is going to take itself really seriously. It's going to be very politically driven. And it's all these things a little bit, but it's also not. It's also very much a satire of how everybody reacts to a certain, element of truth. There's something that's true that we know is true at 99.99, so it doesn't matter. You can remove that from the political aspect of it. It's just a very interesting look at all the emotions that rush the entire world when there's an event that is true, but not everyone wants to accept it. You know what I mean? So there's an element of denial. There's an element of paranoia, conspiracy theories. Some people not taking it seriously. Some people living out their lives as normal. There's so many different types of things. So you got these scientists who discovered that this comet is at 99.9% gonna hit Earth, okay? And they go to the president, and the president is played by Meryl Streep, who is amazing, of course, because she's freaking Meryl Streep. And her son is played by Jonah Hill, who is just a national treasure. I mean, we have to agree that Jonah Hill is a national treasure at this point. The man is just effortlessly funny. He is so good in this movie. It's kind of annoying almost how good he is. Because there's a lot of characters trying to be funny in this movie. and it doesn't always work. But every time Jonah Hill says anything, it's gold. So I want more Jonah Hill. It was so good that he even gets like an after credit sequence. That's how good Jonah Hill is in this movie. He is really good, really funny. But basically, they go see the president. The president's like, well, it's not really in my interest to really do this right now. I've got a congressional race or whatever. There's some other scandals going on. I have to deal with that. But we'll get back to you or whatever. They don't take it seriously, and the movie lays it on way too thick that number one, Jennifer Lawrence is freaking out about this, and number two, Leonardo DiCaprio is also freaking out about it in his own way, in a very kind of nervous way. I feel like the movie lays it on way too thick at the beginning, so we can see a contrast with that character later on. Although Jennifer Lawrence really doesn't have any kind of contrast. She's just kind of the same the whole way through. I just don't find Jennifer Lawrence to be that convincing in anything, and I would have loved someone else to take on the role that she took on in this movie, because she really wasn't that good. But yeah, anyway, so they take this story of the comet to the press, to this kind of show called The Daily Rip with Tyler Perry and Kate Blanchett, who's very good at portraying kind of like a Fox News kind of host, And I didn't recognize her though, because there's a couple of characters in this movie that get kind of a weird makeover. Okay, you got Kate Blanchett, who gets these fake teeth. So she looked completely different. I didn't even realize it was Kate Blanchett initially. That was actually kind of good. That actually worked for me. But then you've got Mark Rylance. I don't know what the hell Mark Rylance is doing in this movie. I have no idea. He's a cartoon. The man is a cartoon. Mark Rylance plays this uber wealthy CEO, kind of like a Steve Jobs meets Tim Cook meets, whatever his name is, Bezos. He's one of those types, but he's got a very weird way of speaking. He's got the Mark Rylance way of speaking, but like turned up to 11. And he's got this like weird wig and these weird teeth. He's a caricature. That's my problem with Vice. One of my many problems with Vice is that everyone just feels like a caricature, so you can't take the point that it's going for. It doesn't work as a biopic. It just feels like a cartoonist in a newspaper just did something, and it's not very good. But it's very heavy-handed. Whereas here, I feel like the satire works a lot better because everyone is kind of poked fun at. It's got this kind of South Park-y feel to it, where it's just like there's this crazy thing happening, and no one reacts to it in a way that's like good and useful and that could actually help things along. Everyone has their own problems. No one really knows what's going on. Even though some people, the two scientists, know that this comet is definitely happening. So yeah, so then they've managed to eventually brew up enough of a movement. There's actually kind of a look up movement that they create, and there's a don't look up movement by the White House, which is this kind of like that you can see the comet in the sky, but they're just like, don't look up. That's the whole point of the title here. But they eventually, like before that, they convinced the White House to work together to try and send Ron Perlman, who is in every movie apparently that I'm talking about today. I talked about Nightmare Alley earlier. He was in that as well. So he's this kind of general guy who's going to be sent into space to break the comet, and there's like an 80% chance that this is going to succeed. But halfway through, Mark Rylance, the CEO, shows up and he's like, well, maybe there's another way we can do this. So then the White House purposely diverts the operation, and then for a different kind of operation run by the CEO, that's going to happen later on. And meanwhile, you've got all this fighting happening between the people, the press, you got all the propaganda, you've got all the conspiracy theories, you got the scientists, fighting for the truth. But Leonardo DiCaprio is having an affair with this, with Kate Blanchett's character, and then meanwhile you've got Jennifer Lawrence kind of falling for this guy played by Timothée Chalamet, who is this kind of geeky dude. He's not even really a geeky dude. He's just kind of like this dude bro that she meets at some point in the supermarket. Not the most fascinating part of the movie, honestly. But Yeah, so you got all this stuff happening. It's kind of a big clusterfuck. This movie is very good at poking fun at everybody that is involved in this clusterfuck, whilst having kind of a cool kind of sci-fi premise, kind of a deep impact sort of premise. It's a good satire as well of those movies, honestly, like Armageddon, Deep Impact, that kind of thing. I think this is a way more successful movie than Vice. You know, it has some problems. Okay, like I said, the cast is very good, but Jennifer Lawrence, I don't know. Then there's this thing that the movie keeps doing, where it keeps cutting abruptly. So someone's about to say something, or someone's almost finished with that phrase, and they keep abruptly cutting, and it does these weird, kind of like, something like a high school student would do with these like, big close-ups to show that someone's nervous. You show the hands, really close up, going like this. There's all these little kind of like film school tricks that are very kind of annoying to look at. And coupled with the constant kind of abrupt cutting, it's very annoying. And they do that the whole movie as well. Yeah. And I don't know, though. I felt like it kind of falls into this sweet spot between something like Wag the Dog, Wag the Dog, or what was his name? Like, was it Bob Roberts? That movie with Tim Robbins. It falls in that sweet satirical spot, like Doctor Strangelove, of course. It's a satire. It's funny, and it is political, but it's very much kind of like more of a let's pull back and look at the whole picture, and just look at it and just be like, wow, everything's fucked, isn't it? And I kind of like that, and I kind of think that was a very successful, the way this movie did it. And the moment that I thought about Doctor Strangelove, and I was like, it clicked for me. I was like, that's what this movie's trying to do, is Mark Rylance. His performance, halfway through the movie, I was like, I don't understand what this guy's doing. And he is doing this caricature, this kind of goofy, maniacal thing, but in a very kind of restrained way. He's doing the Peter Sellers, the German dude, in the wheelchair in Doctor Strangelove. He's doing Doctor Strangelove. And then it clicked. I'm like, yeah, this movie is kind of like Doctor Strangelove. It's got this kind of Southland Tales kind of feel to it as well. But it's a much better movie than Southland Tales, because if you don't know, Southland Tales is almost unwatchable as a movie. But yeah, so I kind of like the sci-fi vibe of it. I thought the movie was actually quite funny, not just because of Jonah Hill, but he definitely contributed a lot. The cast was good for the most part. And I thought, the points that it was making, sometimes a little bit too heavy-handed. For the most part, I think they did a really good job with it. I thought it was a way better movie than Vice, and it was a way better movie that, social media really gave it credit for. So, if you have Netflix, I would actually recommend watching Adam McKay's latest Don't Look Up. It is frustrating at times. The way it's shot is a little bit annoying. Some of the cast members maybe a little bit. The political, aspect of it, some people are not going to dig it, obviously. But what I like about this movie is that it's not actually just like digging its claws into one specific type of person. It's going after a lot of people. And I think even if you are one of these like conspiracy theorist, dudes, you will still enjoy this movie, because I think, there's enough kind of like people being poked fun at that you'd be like, yeah, I kind of get that, So, I don't know. I think this movie is pretty good. I would recommend it, and I didn't see myself... the movies that I was actually like looking forward to in 2021 that I thought were going to be really good turned out to, most of them, to not be very good. And the movies I thought were going to be trash, it turns out some of them actually pretty decent. So that was a nice surprise. Check it out. It's on Netflix. Surprisingly good.